Welcome back to another 10-minute EDH deck tech. Today's deck tech is on Torbran, Thane, or Redfell. I'm going to show you how to do 40 damage in one turn, and you can do that to each opponent and watch them die. You don't believe me? You're going to need this card called Dragon's Approach.
Who's that? Command the Claw. Who's bad? Command the Claw.
The math is simple. 3 damage comes from Dragon's Approach. Torbran's ability adds 2 damage to that. That's a total of 5 damage. You're going to need 8 Dragon's Approach to do 40 damage, and here's how. You're going to need Torbran on the battlefield, some kind of mana ramp, and an extra spell enabler. But first, Torbran. He is a Dwarf Noble for 4 mana. He has Power Toughness 2/4. He reads, if a red source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus 2 instead. And in this deck, you will need 25 Dragon Approaches. Well, you don't know what Dragon Approach does? It deals 3 damage to each opponent. Then you may exile Dragon's Approach and 4 cards named Dragon Approach from your graveyard. If you do, search your library for a Dragon Creature card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. A deck can have any number of cards named Dragon Approach. Extra spell enablers. We're going to go into the category of artifacts and enchantments. The cards are Thrumming Stone, Arcane Bombardment, and Primal Amulet. Thrumming Stone is a 5 mana artifact. It has Ripple, which means spells you cast have Ripple. That's what I meant to say. And Ripple is whenever you cast a spell, you may reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may cast spells with the same name as that spell from among the revealed cards without paying their mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library. Next up, we have this Arcane Bombardment for 6 mana. It's an enchantment. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard. Then copy each card exiled with Arcane Bombardment. You may cast any number of these copies without paying their mana costs. Finally, we have Primal Amulet. It's a 4 mana artifact. It says instant or sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a charge counter on Primal Amulet. Then if there are 4 or more charge counters on it, then you may remove those counters and transform it. And when you transform it, you tap it to add mana of any color. Then you can copy that spell, which is an instant or sorcery. So overall, these cards are going to be able to cast Dragon Approach multiple times, either through your graveyard or as a copy spell. You should be feeling the heat, because if you're not, you're about to get scorched. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And also, we have a secret uncommon at the end of the video. Another way to cast more Dragon Approach cards is to use creatures that have Cascade. Cascade is when you cast a spell, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card whose mana value is less than the spell's mana value. Until you exile a non-land card whose mana value is less than the spell's mana value. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost if the resulting spell's mana value is less than the spell's mana value. Alright, introducing 2 cards that have the Cascade effect. First up is Dark Apostle. Dark Apostle is a 3/3 Astartes Warlock for 4 mana, Gift of Chaos. You tap 3 mana and itself. The next non-creature spell you cast this turn has Cascade. And what's cool is if you have him on the battlefield with Torbran and you use his Cascade effect on Dragon's Approach, you're going to do a total damage of 5, and you're going to load your deck with a Reverberate for 2 CMC, and you're going to copy Dragon's Approach, doing a total of 10 damage to each opponent for only 8 mana. The next card we have is Aurora Phoenix. It is a 5/3 Flying Phoenix for 6 mana that has Cascade, and it says whenever you cast a spell with Cascade, return Aurora Phoenix from your graveyard to your hand. So this is giving you the ability to replay the Cascade effect if you play a card with Cascade. Alright, supporting cards. The first category of supporting cards we're going to go is Cast from the Graveyard. Those cards are Underworld Breach. It's an enchantment for 2 mana that reads, each non-land card in your graveyard has Escape. The Escape cost is equal to the card's mana cost plus exiling 3 other cards from your graveyard. At the beginning of the end step, sacrifice Underworld Breach. So essentially, you're able to cast as many cards from your graveyard as possible if you have the allotted amount of cards to exile. So it's like Flashback, pretty much, but exile the extra 3 cards. Next up we have is Invoke Calamity. For a total of 5 mana, it's a little expensive. You may cast up to 2 instant or sorceries with total mana value 6 or less from your graveyard and or hand without paying their mana cost. If those spells will be put into your graveyard, exile them instead. Okay, so you can cast either 2 Dragon Approaches from your graveyard or from your hand without paying their mana cost, and you net 1 mana because you're only paying 5. But it's going to be better if you use them from your graveyard. Category is Mana Ramp. You need to add a Nyx Lotus. For 4 mana artifact, it comes in the battlefield tapped. It says choose a color. Add an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. That's going to be easy for Torbran because he costs 3 red mountains automatically. So that's devotion of 3 already. Next up is Defiler of Instinct for 4 mana. It's a Phyrexian Kavu. It has first strike, and it has the Phyrexian ability for permanents you control. So use this on permanents like the Underworld Breach or your creatures with Cascade. And whenever you cast a red permanent spell, Defiler of Instinct deals 1 damage to any target. So you get an additional 1 damage on that turn. The next category is Considerations. I added the Wondrous Crucible. It's a 7 mana artifact. It says permanents you control have Ward 2. At the beginning of your end step, mill 2 cards, then exile a non-land card at random from your graveyard. Copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So essentially with this burn deck, you want to cast as many Dragon's Approaches consistently. So by the time you have this out, your permanents have Ward 2, so that your opponents have to pay 2 extra mana to even target it. And that's great for Torbran. Then you get to actually copy a spell from your graveyard, which is going to be a Dragon Approach, without spending mana on it anyways. That's a win. That's just an extra replay value. Next card we have is Dream Pillager. It's a 7 mana dragon, which you can get from Dragon's Approach. Okay, it's a 4/4 flyer. Whenever Dream Pillager deals damage to a player, exile that many cards from the top of your library until end of turn. You may cast spells from among those cards exiled. There you go. You get more Dragon's Approaches. You're able to play from the impulse draw effect. So more you can play, the more you can kill your opponents quicker, and that's what you want to do. Okay, going on to win cons. We have Hazard's Undying Fury and Soulful Mayhem Dominus. We're going to start with Hazard's first. It's a 6 mana sorcery. It says shuffle your library, then exile the top 4 cards. You may cast any number of non-land cards with converted mana cost 5 or less from among them without paying their mana cost. Lands you control don't untap during your next untap step. This is a gamble. This is a gamble. So if the next 4 cards are Dragon's Approaches, that means that's a total of 12 damage. If you have Torbran, that's going to be 20 damage. And you only paid 6 mana to do it. That could put away a lot of players. 20 damage out of nowhere on 1 turn without even having the chance to counter. That's a win con. Next up, we have Soulful Mayhem Dominus. If you don't know what he does by now from the Phyrexian All Will Be One set, he literally doubles non-combat damage to your opponents or anything your opponents control. So, bam. You got a Dragon Approach with a Torbran on it, you're doing 10 damage for each card. On to the secret uncommon revealed. It is the Dream Shaper Shaman. For 6 mana, it's a 5/4 Minotaur Shaman. It reads, at the beginning of your end step, you may pay 3 and sacrifice a non-land permanent. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land permanent card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in any random order. So this is a polymorph effect. And since your deck is going to be loaded with sorceries that are Dragon Approach, it's going to be easy to polymorph into your permanents onto the battlefield. And that's what you want to do. You want those permanents that are enablers to able to increase and enhance the firepower of your burn deck. Thank you for watching the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you agree or disagree with anything that I said. The next 2 videos on the screens are videos suggested by YouTube specifically for you. So click and enjoy.